Welcome to the Bosses Report for Maryland employers. In this edition, I'm going to discuss the minimum wage in Maryland, as well as a new pay transparency law coming into play on October 1st, 2024, when it comes to pay transparency in job postings. So let's talk minimum wage. Starting in 2024, Maryland requires a minimum wage payment for employees of $15 per hour. This is the new minimum wage. Now, if you have tipped employees where their tips are $30 or more per month, you are required to pay them a minimum wage of $3.63. But that's not the end of it. You have to make sure that their wage and their tips and everything they earn per hour meets the minimum wage requirement. That means it has to meet the $15. Now, if you have employees who are under the age of 18, you're legally required to pay them 85% at least of the minimum wage requirement. So make sure that you are meeting the minimum wage pay, or you may have to pay. But that's not all. You may not be aware, and if you're not, this is your sign to pay attention, that different counties have their own minimum wage. And they change the minimum wage based on how many employees you have. So the more employees you have, the minimum wage may be different. So make sure you're paying attention not just to the state minimum wage, but also to the county minimum wage as well. And be aware that some counties have been increasing their minimum wage over time to help you as the employer, as well as the state, become familiar with the increase and increment change of increasing the minimum wage. So if you are not paying a minimum wage and meeting those requirements, it's time to get compliant today. Now that we've discussed minimum wage, let's talk about pay transparency. Starting October 1st, 2024, you will now be required to disclose certain information in your job posting. Even if you are not posting on a traditional job posting site and you are soliciting via email, text, or on social media, you are still required to include the following information. You must include pay range. You must include the minimum and maximum salary or hourly wage they can make for that position. You also must include a brief description of benefits as well as other compensation. That must be included in every job posting. But it doesn't stop there. This law now adds a record-keeping requirement of 3 years. After the initial posting, you must keep records of your compliance with pay transparency for 3 years. And that means even if you do not hire for the position, you still must keep the records for a minimum of 3 years. So before October 1st comes around, you want to set up a record-keeping process or system to help you be compliant with this law. Under existing law, employers were already prohibited from not interviewing, hiring, and employing individuals who requested information about the wage history and wage range. But this law takes it further and says you as an employer cannot retaliate against employees who assert their rights under this law. You cannot refuse to promote them or transfer them. So no retaliation is allowed. Now, one good thing that took place under this law is that employees no longer have the right to directly sue employers. That means an employee cannot directly sue you, but they can submit a report to the Maryland Commissioner of Labor and Industry. Now, once they submit a report, the Maryland Commissioner of Labor and Industry will issue you a warning telling you to become compliant. But after that, you now are facing $600 in penalties per violation per employee. So do not take this lightly and make sure that you do what's necessary to comply with Maryland's minimum wage, but also to comply with the upcoming pay transparency laws so that you stay compliant as a boss, aka the employer in Maryland. This is all for this edition of the Boss's Report for Maryland employers. If you found this helpful, share this with another boss in Maryland, aka another employer, and make sure you subscribe to this channel.